I'm gonna build you a house. Right here. Our house.
He told me about the documentary, that Nancy Bursky's documentary, The Loving Story, and I watched that and I started to get excited and nervous at the same time because I realized just that Jeff was sitting on something very precious, you know, the story that he was going to tell, and inviting myself and Ruth into that, and you know, you get nervous because movies, sometimes they fall over before you actually get to shoot them, or for whatever reason. If it didn't happen, I was going to be very upset by that. And I saw that in Ruth too, that I think we both understood, and everybody involved understood, that this was a very precious story to tell, a very important story. So we cared a lot.
I'm gonna take Mildred up to D.C. to get married.
Are you sure about that?
By the power vested in me by the District of Columbia, I now pronounce you husband and wife.
One of the big themes for me with Richard was what it means to be a man and not to be able to protect one's family or provide for them. And it's a big note in the film of Richard wanting to be able to look after Mildred, and Mildred really was the strength of that relationship and the reason why Richard didn't fall down. But Richard weathered that 9 years, I think, as his, you know, outdoor work weathered him. I think the emotional weight of that oppression and the lockdown of the law and the inability to navigate and his inability to articulate weathered him in a way that I think he felt very emasculated. And I think, without being gender kind of generalising about it, I think it's particularly a man pride thing to go, I want to be able to look after my people, my family and my friends, and particularly my children. And they didn't let him. And I think that really affected him.
In here?
Richard!
What you doing in bed with that woman?
I'm his wife.
That's no good here.
There's something really wonderful about the Lovings because they're regular people. And, you know, I think there are two kinds of superheroes. There's obviously the fantastical superhero. There's the person that you figure is going to fly in and has super strength. You know, the best kind of superheroes are the ones we can all relate to. They're the ones that are just like us. You can look at Richard and Mildred and say, that could have been me in a different scenario, a different world. I could have been born into that scenario. You know, I think what they stand for is the freedom of equality, you know, on lines of race and on lines of, say, gender equality and marriage equality. And I don't think they ever wanted that, particularly Richard, but they weren't afraid of it.
Richard Perry Loving being a white person and Mildred Jeter being a colored person did unlawfully cohabitate as man and wife.
Richard?
That ain't right!
Working with Ruth was one of the best work experiences I've ever had. In fact, that goes for a general note about this whole film. I put it on a different shelf, and I put Ruth as an actress on a different shelf.
That could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Hey, we ain't hurting anybody.
The state of Virginia will argue that it is unfair to bring children of mixed race into the world.
Tell that woman to come over here.
I've done two very different movies with Jeff, but at the same time, when it all boils down, it all comes down to a couple of things: family and love, you know, and that's really what Jeff's engine is in life, I think, when you see him with his wife and with his child. And look, you know, I've got so much to say about Jeff that's great, and I think people watching his movies sort of, they get that there's something special going on with this guy, and he has a body of work now that's undeniably, you know, quality and interesting, and he speaks to the South. He represents the South very well. He represents the earth, I mean, the ground and the real people of America. And he does it in wonderful detail, and he's a very thorough director. He knows exactly what he wants to do. I get this idea of Jeff having already watched the movie 1,000,000 times in his head before he shot a single frame. So he knows exactly what he's doing on set.
You realize this case could alter the Constitution of the United States.
You think you'll lose?
We may lose the small battles, but win the big war.
The film Loving really is a love story. You know, this I don't know if Richard and Mildred realised it, but it's almost perfectly, they were perfectly fated to become the centre of this thing. Every great love story needs an obstacle, fictional or true, and their obstacle was you know, a bunch of people intervening in what they shouldn't have had a say in. Yeah, Loving is just a beautiful love story.